Narrator, tone, serious. Ethan Ford suddenly saw the woman he hadn't seen for days, and his heart skipped a beat. It had only been a few days, yet it felt like an eternity. The last time he saw her, she seemed on the verge of collapsing at any moment. But this time, she exuded a unique aura that made Ethan feel somewhat dazzled. However, the clear eyes that once sparkled when they saw him had lost their luster.
Christine Lane, tone, serious. Your family has agreed to the divorce, but I have conditions.
Ethan Ford, tone, frowning. What conditions?
Ethan frowned. Was this woman serious this time?
Christine Lane, tone, serious. I want 50 million.
Ethan Ford, tone, Cole. Do you think my place is your personal bank?
As expected, she was just a money-loving woman.
Christine Lane, tone, serious. Believe me, your parents have already agreed to give it to me, and your family doesn't lack this amount of money, do they?
Ethan Ford, tone, cold. What if I don't give it?
Christine Lane, tone, serious. Then the divorce won't happen. You can wait for your beloved Sophia to be the other woman, and your child to be an illegitimate one forever.
Christine picked up her bag and was about to leave, but she was gambling in her heart. She was betting that Ethan would compromise for Sophia Qing. Sure enough, she had only taken 3 steps when a magnetic voice sounded behind her.
Ethan Ford, tone, serious. Is that all?
Christine sneered inwardly. Of course, it wasn't just that. The Ford family had caused her father to be imprisoned and made her lose her own child. How could this amount of money be enough?
Christine Lane, tone, serious. As far as I know, the Ford family has investments in the timber exchange. I want all your shares there.
Ethan Ford, tone, scrutinizing. You seem to know a lot about the Ford family.
Christine Lane, tone, sarcastic. Ha, I fell in love with your family's money. How could I not know?
She had stayed up several nights to gather this information. To the Ford Group, the timber exchange was just an obscure small company. Giving her the shares wouldn't cause any loss. But to her, it was very important.
Christine Lane, tone, serious. I've already had the divorce agreement redrafted by a lawyer. Your parents have no objections, and it's just waiting for your signature.
Ethan Ford, tone, curious. You've already talked to my parents. Why bother talking to me?
Christine Lane, tone, serious. You are the one involved and need to be clear about it. Besides, in the current Ford family, you are the head.
Different, very different. This was the only feeling Ethan had towards Christine at the moment. The shrewd and calculating look she had now seemed to be her true face. The gentle and virtuous demeanor she had shown at home, the appearance of being deeply in love with him, was all an act.
Christine Lane, tone, serious. Mr. Ford, if you have no objections, please sign.
Christine picked up a pen from the table, opened the cap, and handed it to Ethan. Ethan didn't take the pen, his gaze still fixed on her. Christine didn't mind and slowly withdrew her hand. As she expected, this man wouldn't sign easily, so.
Sophia Qing, tone, shouting. Ethan.
Sophia Qing had been eavesdropping at the office door for a long time and finally couldn't help but speak out. She hadn't expected Christine to demand so much property, but as long as they could get divorced, this amount of money was just a drop in the bucket for the Ford family.
Ethan Ford, tone, frowning. Why are you here?
Sophia Qing, tone, cheerful to see you. We haven't seen each other for a long time.
She affectionately leaned half of her body against Ethan, holding his arm. Christine no longer felt the jealousy she once had towards their affectionate behavior. She just found it ridiculous that they were flaunting their affair before the divorce was even finalized. Ethan caught the sarcasm in Christine's eyes. He pushed Sophia away and picked up the agreement to read.
Ethan, what are you waiting for? Just sign it.
Sophia urged anxiously, fearing that Ethan might change his mind. She had noticed his hesitation while eavesdropping at the door, which made her very uneasy.
Let's see what other tricks she has up her sleeve.
he said, glancing at Christine before carefully reviewing the terms of the agreement. When he saw the clause, no further relations, his heart twinged for a moment. Before he could figure out why, Sophia placed a pen in his hand. Ethan silently looked at the pen and then signed his name.
Shall we go to the civil affairs office now?
Christine had timed it perfectly so that it wouldn't be too early or too late to go there. With Sophia present, Ethan had no way to refuse, even if he was reluctant. This woman was so eager to sever ties with him, even though he was the one who didn't care for her. Ethan thought angrily as the three of them arrived at the civil affairs office. It wasn't uncommon for staff at the civil affairs office to see husbands bringing their mistresses to divorce their wives. Although they were used to such scenes, the staff still showed no kindness towards Ethan.
Girl, it's good to get a divorce. You'll find a better man in the future.
Ethan clenched his fists, silently cursing that Christine wouldn't find anyone. With a loud thud, the stamp was heavily pressed onto the divorce certificate, the sound echoing like a hammer striking Ethan's heart. It was over. The same thought crossed all three of their minds, but their feelings were entirely different. Sophia was naturally happy, Christine felt liberated, while Ethan. He looked at Christine's relaxed face with a complex expression, not feeling the sense of relief he had expected but rather a sense of confusion. Christine took her divorce certificate and left without even glancing back at them. That very day, news of Ethan's divorce spread, stirring the hearts of many daughters from prestigious families. Margaret Ford hosted a banquet at home, inviting Sophia and her parents. The meeting of both families was essentially to finalize the marriage between Ethan and Sophia.
We need to start planning the wedding soon. It won't look good if the belly shows in the wedding dress. Ethan, you need to be more attentive. You're going to be a father.
Ethan showed no reaction, his eyes downcast, hiding his true feelings. He couldn't understand himself anymore. He was going to be a father, but he didn't feel any joy about it, unlike everyone else at the table. Sophia, immersed in the joy of her long-cherished wish coming true, didn't notice Ethan's complex expression. The day after both families finalized the wedding, they publicly announced the wedding date, quelling the excitement of women who had just learned of Ethan's divorce. Ordinary people also marveled at the speed of this high-profile wedding, wondering how quickly Ethan remarried. Christine saw the news too. The Ford family was influential in City A, making it hard for her to avoid such news even if she wanted to. Once she had done what she needed to do, she would leave, far away from here, far away from Ethan. Everyone thought the process was fast enough, but Margaret felt it wasn't quick enough. She was afraid her precious grandson would slip away and wished Sophia could move into the old house immediately to take care of him.
This is getting ridiculous. Why can't I control my own marriage?
Ethan grew increasingly impatient with his mother's constant urging. It felt worse than when they forced him to marry Christine. Was he now unable to control his own marriage and still had to be dictated by his family? No, he was now the head of the Ford family, and marriage was just a matter of his decision. But Sophia was expecting his child, he couldn't shirk his responsibility. Wait, when did he start having second thoughts about marrying Sophia?
Ethan.
Sophia had somehow walked up to him, her face slightly flushed.
Mom said we should go pick out wedding dresses and suits together.
Over the past few days, Sophia had found that Margaret was very satisfied with her and even urged her to start calling her mom soon. So, although she felt a bit embarrassed, she was happy to accept it, as it meant she was becoming part of the family.
Okay.
The next day, he had his assistant cancel all his appointments for the day and accompanied Sophia to the bridal shop. Looking at the dazzling array of wedding dresses, Ethan couldn't help but recall that when he married Christine, he hadn't accompanied her for any of this. His mother hadn't enthusiastically helped her prepare either. Thinking back, Christine had prepared everything for the wedding by herself. They only showed up for the ceremony.
Ethan.
Sophia called softly. She had already changed into the first wedding dress, nervously waiting for his response. When they got engaged years ago, they hadn't had a chance to pick out wedding dresses before being forcibly separated. So, this was the first time Ethan saw Sophia in a wedding dress. She looked beautiful. But through her, Ethan thought of another woman, also in a wedding dress, with skin like porcelain and eyes like autumn water.
Ethan.
Sophia called again. She knew he was distracted and clutched her dress tightly.
Beautiful.
Ethan snapped back to reality and complimented her. And that was it. Ethan used a single beautiful to brush it off. Sophia maintained a flawless, happy smile on her face, hiding the fleeting jealousy in her eyes. She dragged her dress and turned back to the fitting room. Ethan felt he might be going crazy. Ever since he divorced Christine, he kept thinking about her and their past. He was about to marry Sophia and have a child. What was he doing? He shook off the strange thoughts and focused on helping Sophia choose a wedding dress. In the days that followed, he thought about Christine less and less. It turned out that if he controlled his thoughts, he wouldn't think of her anymore. It seemed he didn't care about her that much after all. Christine would eventually become a passerby in his life, and their lives would return to parallel lines. This was good. No one knew if Ethan truly felt better. But Christine was very clear that she was living much better than before. Rescuing her father from prison was her most urgent task at the moment. It was this goal that forced her to pull herself out of her grief and muster the strength to fight against the Ford family. Collecting evidence of the Ford family's past misdeeds was no easy task. Even with a large sum of money that could last her a lifetime, she couldn't find anything substantial. The Ford family's influence in City A was deeply entrenched and complex. The only major upheaval had resulted in her father taking the fall for them. After Ethan took over, the Ford family became even more impenetrable. After washing up, Christine took 2 sleeping pills and lay quietly in bed, emptying her mind. She couldn't fall asleep naturally and had to get a prescription for sleeping pills from her doctor. She kept this from Michael, knowing he would never let her take them if he found out. Lying on her side, she saw the ring on the bedside table, glinting in the dark. She thought, "I'll sell it tomorrow." Christine was a person of action. Within a few days, she had found a buyer.
Mississippi Lane, are you sure you don't need more time to think about it? Once you sell it to me, it's gone.
No need.
A one-of-a-kind ring in the world, symbolizing a lifetime of love for one person. Can you really part with it?
His words filled Christine's eyes with endless sarcasm. How laughable. If Ethan had known the meaning behind the ring, he probably wouldn't have bought it in the first place. A lifetime of love for one person? He never loved her.
You really want this ring, don't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to me. Let's just make the transaction. I have other things to do.
The ring was eventually sold, severing the last connection between Christine and Ethan. What she didn't know was that this young collector was very familiar with Ethan. Jack watched Christine leave and then took out his phone to make a call.
Ethan,
What is it?
get to the point.
Ethan was used to Jack's antics and was completely unaffected.
You're no fun. Alright, I'll get straight to it. Your ex-wife sold your wedding ring, and the buyer is none other than me.
The car sped down the road, but Ethan felt it wasn't fast enough. He was angry. Angry that Christine had sold the ring. Even if they were divorced, there was no need to sell the ring. That ring. The more Ethan thought about it, the angrier he became. He wanted to confront her, to ask if she loved money so much that even the shares and money she got from him weren't enough, and she had to sell the ring. But how could he find her? He didn't even know where Christine was living now. The car circled the city aimlessly, with no destination in mind. Until his phone rang.
Hello, Ethan, are you back? Mom and I made a lot of dishes, just waiting for you to come home.
I'm coming back now.
Ethan's speed dropped to 60, his heart gradually calming down, as if the man who had almost lost control moments ago wasn't him. The wedding had been in preparation for a long time and was set to take place in a week. This wedding had the full attention of the Ford family, except for the groom. Christine naturally wouldn't tell him that she had informed Sophia in advance, and Sophia wouldn't be foolish enough to confess to Ethan.
Why are you here?
To see you. We haven't seen each other for a long time.
She affectionately leaned half of her body against Ethan, holding his arm. Christine no longer felt the jealousy she once had towards their affectionate behavior. She just found it ridiculous that they were flaunting their affair before the divorce was even finalized. Ethan caught the sarcasm in Christine's eyes. He pushed Sophia away and picked up the agreement to read. Christine naturally wouldn't tell Ethan that she had informed Sophia in advance, and Sophia wouldn't be foolish enough to confess to him.
Why are you here?
To see you. We haven't seen each other for a long time.
She leaned half of her body against Ethan, holding his arm. Christine no longer felt the jealousy she once had towards their affectionate behavior. She just found it ridiculous that they were flaunting their affair before the divorce was even finalized. Ethan caught the sarcasm in Christine's eyes. He pushed Sophia away and picked up the agreement to read. Ethan took the initiative to ask Sophia out. Sophia was very happy about this because it had been a long time since they had gone out on a date alone. She opened her wardrobe, picking and choosing, but nothing seemed satisfactory. In the end, she went to a boutique and bought a new dress in the style Ethan liked, finally feeling more at ease. The meeting place was an elegantly decorated Western restaurant. Since it was booked for a private event, there were no other guests. When she walked in and saw no flowers or candles, she felt a bit disappointed. But then she remembered that Ethan never liked such things, so she let it go. Ethan was already seated inside. Sophia's heart raced as she walked towards the handsome man.
Ethan, I'm here.
Sit down. Order whatever you like.
Sophia thought it would be nice if there was some music at this moment. But unfortunately, there was no music, only the shocking news Ethan was about to deliver.
Sophia, let's cancel our wedding. I can't marry you.
What did you say?
She couldn't hold the knife and fork steady, and they clattered onto the plate and then the floor, making a harsh noise.
We can't get married.
Why? Why can't we get married? Our wedding is just a few days away. Is it because your mother disagrees again? Or did that woman Christine pull some tricks?
Sophia, watch your language.
Watch my language? Really, watch my language. Ethan, everyone knows we're about to get married, but now you're saying we won't. What am I supposed to do?
I'll take all the blame. It won't affect your reputation.
And what about our child? What will happen to our child? Do you want your family's descendant to be nameless?
If you want to keep the child, you can. I'll cover all the expenses, and I won't ask for custody. If you don't want to keep it, I'll arrange the best doctor for you.
Ethan! How can you be so cruel to me? You abandoned me once before, and now that I've chosen to trust you again, you're abandoning me again?
Before Ethan could speak, she continued with tears streaming down her face.
How can you give me hope and then shatter it?
I'm sorry, Sophia.
He could only offer this apology, he couldn't promise her anything else. Sophia felt like a joke at that moment. She even wanted to tear apart the new dress she was wearing. She glared at Ethan with hatred and left with her bag. That day, the Ford family, which had just quieted down from the recent news, made headlines again. Music prodigy Sophia Qing and the Ford family's son called off their engagement, with the reason being the woman's dissatisfaction with the man's behavior. The news painted Ethan in a bad light, making the breakup seem reasonable. Sophia didn't expect that to call off the engagement, Ethan would go so far as to tarnish his own reputation. The Ford family's stock plummeted overnight, and he had already gone to such lengths. Christine naturally wouldn't tell him that she had informed Sophia in advance, and Sophia wouldn't be foolish enough to confess to Ethan.
Why are you here?
To see you. We haven't seen each other for a long time.
She affectionately leaned half of her body against Ethan, holding his arm. Christine no longer felt the jealousy she once had towards their affectionate behavior. She just found it ridiculous that they were flaunting their affair before the divorce was even finalized. Ethan caught the sarcasm in Christine's eyes. He pushed Sophia away and picked up the agreement to read. That look, that tone, it was exactly the same as in the hospital, as if she wanted to strip him of his skin, drain his blood, and tear him apart. Ethan couldn't understand what he had done wrong to make Christine look at him with such venomous eyes. At that moment, he felt a sharp pain in his heart, and his grip loosened, allowing Christine to easily push him away. Christine returned home with a cold expression, opened her computer, and contacted her liaison. She knew that a large family business like the Fords would always be under scrutiny. She had contacted Robert Green, the head of a financial investigation team in City A, and agreed to be his informant, providing evidence of the Ford family's wrongdoings. In return, they would help her get her father's case retried and bring the real culprits to justice. Ethan was shrewd and strategic in the business world. Under his management, the family business had become even stronger and more secure, like a fortress. Christine no longer needed to work. She spent most of her time at the boxing gym and the rest cooperating with the investigation team. Since their last argument, Ethan hadn't shown up again. However, Sophia came looking for her. Christine found it strange how everyone seemed to know she was taking boxing lessons.
Miss Qing, what do you want?
Christine asked expressionlessly, looking at Sophia blocking her way. She no longer saw her as a rival because of Ethan. Now, she was nothing.
You shameless woman!
Sophia raised her hand, ready to slap her. Christine easily caught her hand.
Miss Qing, watch your mouth.
Let go of me! You wretch! You took the money, so why are you still here? You already took Ethan once, why do you want to take him again?
Miss Qing, I have no interest in competing with you. The man you're so desperate to please means nothing to me.
Stop pretending, Christine. You're just a homewrecker. You want to make my life miserable. What about my child? Why don't you just disappear instead of showing up in front of Ethan?
I have no patience for your madness. I'm telling you, you and Ethan, stay away from me and stop bothering me.
Christine's eyes glanced at her stomach, flat and not showing any signs of pregnancy, even though it had been almost 4 months. She let go of Sophia and walked away. A few days later, Christine received a document confirming that Sophia wasn't expecting. It was just a ploy to force Ethan into marriage. Faking a pregnancy report was easy for her, but it was just as easy for Christine to uncover the truth. She couldn't help but marvel at how useful money could be. Sophia's previous acting had been too clumsy. Christine didn't mind cooperating with her next time to stage a miscarriage. Due to the shares she received from the divorce, Christine became a major shareholder in the timber exchange and was invited to a banquet.
Christine.
Ethan walked up to her. He knew she would attend the event, so he arrived early. Christine didn't even bother to look at him and turned away to distance herself.
Christine.
Ethan had been waiting for her to appear, and now that he saw her, he followed closely.
Why are you walking so fast?
To avoid you. I don't want to see you.
But I want to see you.
Ethan reached out to pull her closer, his other hand resting on her slender waist.
This is a public place, Mr. Ford. We should keep our distance to avoid any gossip.
I'm not letting go.
Ethan enjoyed the closeness of the moment, pulling her into his arms, his chin brushing the top of her head, inhaling the scent of her hair, and savoring the warmth and softness in his embrace. Their sudden intimate posture made the people around them gasp, wondering what was going on. Sophia stood hidden in the shadows, her hands clenched tightly, her eyes filled with resentment. Christine took the opportunity to slip away to the restroom, finally shaking off Ethan. The banquet was held in a manor, and instead of returning to the hall, Christine went to the terrace. The manor was full of exotic charm, with pleasant scenery and much better air than inside.
Miss Qing, why are you hiding? If you want to do something, do it openly.
Christine turned around to see Sophia emerging from her hiding spot.
Who's hiding? What are you talking about?
Christine sneered. From the moment she entered the restroom, she knew Sophia had been following her. She knew this woman was just waiting for the right moment, so she let her have her way.
Miss Qing, if you want to stage a miscarriage scene with me, just say so. After all, I'm happy to cooperate and help you and Mr. Ford.
Sophia's calm expression almost cracked as Christine hit the nail on the head.
Don't talk nonsense. I love my child. Why would I want a miscarriage?
Because you're not pregnant, right?
Shut up!
Sophia hadn't expected Christine to know everything, which deepened her resentment. Yes, she wanted to set Christine up, causing her to have a miscarriage. This way, she could gain Ethan's sympathy and cover up the fact that she wasn't pregnant. Most importantly, she wanted Ethan to think Christine was a ruthless woman. She had already sent Ethan a message, asking him to come over, timing it perfectly to create the illusion that Christine had pushed her. Christine naturally wouldn't tell him that she had informed Sophia in advance, and Sophia wouldn't be foolish enough to confess to Ethan.
Why are you here?
To see you. We haven't seen each other for a long time.
She affectionately leaned half of her body against Ethan, holding his arm. Christine no longer felt the jealousy she once had towards their affectionate behavior. She just found it ridiculous that they were flaunting their affair before the divorce was even finalized. Ethan caught the sarcasm in Christine's eyes. He pushed Sophia away and picked up the agreement to read.
Can you drive a bit faster?
Safety first.
He was doing it on purpose, wanting to spend more time with her. She didn't want to say anything more and leaned against the car window, closing her eyes. After a long while, Ethan's deep voice came through.
I just want to spend more time with you.
I don't want to. Every second with you makes it hard for me to breathe.
After about 2 hours, the car finally drove from the suburbs back to the city. Christine quickly unbuckled her seatbelt and got out of the car, slamming the door shut as if to vent her emotions.
Christine, you're finally back.
Michael, why are you here? Why aren't you at home this late?
She noticed he was in his loungewear, with slippers on his feet.
You were out late, and I couldn't reach you on your phone. I was worried, so I decided to wait here for you.
He stomped his feet lightly to ease the numbness from standing too long.
My phone died. Let's go upstairs.
Ethan's eyes flared with anger when he saw Michael. He caught up and grabbed Christine's arm, stopping them.
Have you been living with him all this time?
He knew she lived here and thought it was her rented place, but he hadn't expected Michael to be living there too.
Mr. Ford, please let go.
Michael also grabbed Ethan's hand, staring intently at him.
Christine is my girlfriend. What's wrong with her living at my place?
He forcefully pulled Ethan's hand away and then wrapped his arm around Christine's shoulder.
Mr. Ford, you should go home. My girlfriend and I are going inside.
Without waiting for Ethan's reaction, he turned to Christine, gently squeezing her shoulder.
Christine, let's go home.
Okay.
Christine nodded, staying quietly by Michael's side. Ethan stared at Michael's hand on Christine's shoulder, feeling as if he had been thrown into an ice cellar. Words like girlfriend and home pierced his heart like tiny needles. In reality, Christine and Michael were just friends. But in that situation, Christine didn't refuse to cooperate with him because she didn't want to get entangled with Ethan.
Don't be so tense.
I'm not tense.
Christine sighed softly. She just felt Ethan's gaze burning into her back. Michael used one hand to enter the unit door code, keeping his other hand on Christine's shoulder. Suddenly, he felt a swift punch coming towards his face. He instantly let go of Christine, shielding her behind him, and took the punch himself.
Ethan. What are you doing?
Christine quickly supported Michael White. Ethan had only used a fraction of his strength in that punch, mindful that Christine was standing next to Michael. Ethan felt a burning rage, especially after seeing Christine's obvious concern for Michael, which only fueled his anger further. He grabbed Michael by the collar and dragged him aside, landing another punch, this time with much more force, causing Michael's mouth to bleed.
Are you out of your mind?
Christine saw that Ethan was about to continue and immediately stepped in front of Michael. Ethan's fist stopped in midair. He glared at Christine, gritting his teeth.
You're protecting him? Who is he to you?
What else? Should I just let you beat him up?
Their eyes locked in a fierce standoff until Ethan finally backed down.
Christine, you're something else.
He withdrew his fist and spoke each word with emphasis. Seeing him back off, Christine immediately turned to check on Michael's injuries. But before she could touch Michael, she suddenly felt herself being lifted. The world spun around her.
What are you doing? Let me go!
Christine was hoisted over Ethan's shoulder. She kicked her legs and pounded his back with her fists. Ethan didn't react at all, and Christine's hands started to hurt from hitting him.
If you won't let me hit him, then I'll deal with you.
He placed Christine in the back seat of the car, fastened her seatbelt securely, and then started the car and drove off. The car sped down the road, a stark contrast to its earlier slow pace. When they reached the villa, Ethan carried Christine out. After closing the door, he pressed her against the car. Their bodies were tightly pressed together. His broad hand gripped her slender waist, locking her in his embrace. The sky was dark, mirroring Ethan's expression. His obsidian eyes were like magnets, drawing Christine in, making it impossible for her to escape.
I won't hit him again. I'll deal with you instead.
He repeated, but his gaze was no longer cold, it was filled with something else, intense and fiery. He lowered his head and captured Christine's soft lips, biting them punitively. It wasn't until Christine whimpered in pain that he pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against hers as he whispered,
Let's see if you'll provoke me with him again.
Before Christine could respond, he kissed her again. This time, it was a real kiss. Ethan poured all his love for Christine into that kiss, conveying it all to her. He didn't believe Christine couldn't feel it. Christine felt it, but what she thought was that she now had someone she could use. After a kiss, Christine stayed at the villa, and Ethan let her have the master bedroom. She walked into the bedroom, and the familiar scent hit her. Everything was just as it had been when she left. The wedding photo was still up, and the small bedside lamp she had placed was still there.
I can't sleep with all these memories around.
She brought over a chair and, with some difficulty, took down the wedding photo, turning it face down in the corner. It looked much better that way. She closed the door and locked it. After taking a shower in the bathroom, she was about to lie down and rest when she noticed the cabinets on either side of the bed, filled with her solo photos and their miniature wedding photos.
I can't stand these reminders.
Her anger flared up again, and she threw all the photos into the trash can. After doing all this, she let out a sigh of relief. The fatigue hit her instantly, compounded by the alcohol she had at the dinner party. She couldn't resist the sleepiness and soon fell into a deep sleep, surrounded by the familiar scent. By the time Ethan finished reading the documents, it was already 1 a.m. He quietly walked to the master bedroom door and, as he expected, found it locked. He took out a key and opened the door. Seeing Christine asleep on the bed, his heart softened. But then he noticed something was off, the wedding photo was gone. After a quick glance around, he saw it discarded in the corner.
She must be really upset.
He sighed helplessly, a hint of affection in his eyes that even he didn't realize. Without waking Christine, he hung the wedding photo back up. He found the precious photos in the trash can, cleaned them with a wet wipe, and put them back in their places. He then carefully climbed into bed, moving like a thief to avoid waking Christine. Once he was finally under the covers, his heart raced, and his body felt warmer. He cautiously pulled Christine into his arms, their skin touching. When he realized she hadn't woken up, he entwined his long legs with her smooth ones and closed his eyes in contentment. The scent of Christine, who had used his body wash, filled his nose. He stroked her silky hair, a smile playing on his lips. This was his first time sharing a bed with Christine, and even though they were just sleeping, it made him feel incredibly happy. The next morning, the glaring sunlight streamed through the window, waking Christine. Before opening her eyes, she felt herself tightly held by a warm body. She opened her eyes abruptly and saw Ethan's handsome face up close, so close she could count his eyelashes.
Ah!
Reflexively, she screamed and kicked Ethan away. The next second, Ethan, who had been sleeping, felt a sharp pain in his lower body and found himself on the floor beside the bed.
Honey, you almost hurt me.
Ethan, have some decency. Who's your wife?
Christine wrapped herself in the blanket and, after realizing her clothes were intact, breathed a sigh of relief.
Ah!
Ethan, standing unclothed, hadn't expected such a strong reaction from Christine. Was she disgusted by him?
Stop screaming, or the neighbors will hear you.
As he got closer, Christine instinctively pushed him away, pulling his hand off.
Stay away from me, you scoundrel.
Her eyes were still tightly shut, her cheeks flushed red. So, she was shy. Ethan found her adorable like this and felt his affection for her grow. He wanted to tease her more but feared it would only make her dislike him further, which would be counterproductive.
All right, I'll put on some clothes.
Christine sighed in relief and opened her eyes. Seeing him only in a towel, she took a deep breath.
That's not much different from being unclothed.
How is it not? The important parts are covered.
Christine was at a loss for words, shaking her head and closing her eyes again, feeling it was inappropriate to look.
Just go out. I need to get up.
Ethan, unsure if he had managed to attract her attention, obediently left the room. Christine only opened her eyes after the door closed. The master bedroom's arrangement had returned to its previous state, with Ethan having put the photos back in place. With a dark expression, she got out of bed and went to the bathroom to freshen up. She headed straight for the door downstairs, not planning to stay any longer. Yesterday had been an exception. Ethan was in the kitchen learning to make breakfast from Mary Chen. Hearing the door close, he quickly ran out, relieved to see Christine hadn't gone far.
Where are you going?
Home.
Hearing the word home, the anger from yesterday surged back.
That's not your home. I won't let you go there.
Christine looked extremely impatient as she pried Ethan's hand off.
Let go of me. Stop being unreasonable, will you?
Fine, but don't stay at his place. I'll find you a house. You can't live with him anymore. It's too dangerous for a man and a woman to be alone together.
Christine only caught the last part of his words.
It seems the dangerous one is you.
Ethan recalled his actions from the previous night, feeling a bit embarrassed.
In any case, you can't stay there. If you do, I'll do what I did yesterday. Every time you stay, I'll confront him.
Enough, Ethan. Aren't you being childish? Is confrontation all you know?
Yes, I'm childish. Ever since I realized I liked you, loved you, I've become childish. Go ahead and stay there. See if I don't confront him.
An inexplicable emotion surged in Christine's heart. Hearing Ethan say he loved her left her at a loss. She clenched her hand tightly, suppressing that strange emotion.
Fine, I won't stay there, but I don't need you to find me a place. I'll find one myself.
With that, she turned to leave. Ethan followed her closely, afraid she would go to Michael's place.
Where are you going?
The boxing gym.
Hearing this, Ethan's vigilance eased.
I'll take you.
Don't you need to go to the office?
Of course, but I'm the boss.
Ethan replied and walked ahead to bring the car around. Ethan knew the address of the boxing gym very well. When he had found out she had enrolled in this class, he was surprised. He hadn't expected someone as gentle as Christine to choose such a vigorous sport.
Why did you decide to learn boxing?
Christine paused for a moment, then answered after a brief silence.
To protect myself.
This time, it was Ethan's turn to be silent. She had said she learned boxing to protect herself. Boxing required fierce, decisive, and fast moves. For an ordinary person, one punch could be quite overwhelming.
From now on, I'll protect you.
His spontaneous promise was met with a light laugh from Christine, though it was tinged with sarcasm. When they arrived, Christine got out of the car and left. Ethan watched her disappear through the door, not starting the car. He felt a bit agitated, unsure if it was because Christine was practicing boxing or because of her laugh just now. Back at the office, the first thing he did was instruct his assistant to find a place.
Find a good place today, far from Michael's, with good environment and transportation, and high security.
The assistant noted everything down and was about to leave when Ethan called him back.
And check if Christine has ever experienced any traumatic incidents.
He was still worried about what had just happened. The assistant was efficient. The house was found quickly, fully furnished, and ready for immediate move-in. Ethan took the keys from the assistant and left the office. However, once in the car, he realized he had no idea where to find Christine. He only knew she stayed at Michael's place and attended boxing classes, nothing more. This made him feel a bit defeated. He called Christine, and after 10 seconds, she answered. Ethan was pleasantly surprised. He hadn't expected Christine to pick up. She usually hung up immediately and didn't respond to texts.
Christine, where are you?
What do you want?
Christine's cold voice contrasted sharply with Ethan's gentle tone. Their roles had reversed, he was now the gentle one, and she was cold.
I found a place. I'll help you move.
Christine looked at the economic investigation team leader across from her and, after a moment, said,
All right.
Where are you now? I'll come get you.
Christine gave him an address and hung up.
We'll wait for your good news.
Christine nodded and took her bag to the address she had mentioned earlier, waiting for Ethan to pick her up. While waiting, she sent a text message to Michael, informing him that she was moving. Moving was a bit of an exaggeration, she didn't have much to pack. All her belongings fit into one suitcase.
Let me take that for you.
He easily picked up the suitcase and walked to the door, seeing Christine place the keys to the apartment on the coffee table. He couldn't be happier. Was this a sign of her compromise? The new neighborhood was much more upscale than Michael's place, with a noticeably better environment. Christine remained silent throughout the journey, watching Ethan bustle around. She didn't feel any cheap sentimentality for his actions.
Just endure it, and it will be over soon.
Living alone in the new place made many things more convenient. Michael would call her occasionally, but she was deliberately reducing their contact. Michael noticed and called less frequently afterward. Ethan, however, felt that his relationship with Christine was showing signs of improvement. Given his past behavior, it was understandable that Christine disliked him, but he was confident he could earn her forgiveness and win her back. At least now, when he appeared in front of her, she wasn't as resistant as before.
What are you doing here?
Just checking on your training progress.
Christine scrutinized him and noticed his hands were wrapped in boxing bandages, holding a pad. She immediately knew what he wanted. He was looking for a sparring session.
All right. A free sparring partner shouldn't be wasted.
Ethan was about to say something when he felt a swift punch coming his way. He quickly dodged it.
Wow, that was close! Not bad. Your straight punches are quick and agile.
Christine didn't waste words on him, treating Ethan as a punching bag, her punches unrelenting. But Ethan blocked them all, his movements agile and stylish. After several rounds, Christine hadn't landed a single punch on Ethan, while she was already sweating profusely. Ethan, on the other hand, seemed at ease, clearly experienced.
Your strikes are good, but you need to work on your stamina.
Ethan removed the bandages and sat down next to Christine.
Slowly took a sip of water, tightened the cap, and put it down. Then she quickly flipped and pinned Ethan down, her fist landing on him.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. How could you bear to hit me? It hurts so much.
Ethan laughed, blocking with his hands, but Christine's punches felt more like tickles, tickling him to his core. With a swift move, he flipped over, pinning Christine beneath him, one hand holding her wrists against his chest, letting her feel the intense beating of his heart.
Darling, I want to kiss you. Ah! Ethan cried out in pain, feeling a sharp pain in his lower abdomen as if he had been struck hard.
With a swift move, Christine freed her hands and tried to push Ethan away forcefully.
Wife, you're so ruthless. He pulled Christine back under him, pressing one leg against her legs to prevent her from struggling.
Who's your wife, you? Her words were cut off by Ethan's passionate kiss.
When Christine left the boxing gym, her cheeks were still flushed. She felt too embarrassed to return to the gym for lessons, wondering how many people had witnessed the earlier scene.
Wife, don't be mad. He followed her, trying to hold her hand. Christine, my dear, don't be angry.
Stop calling me that. We have nothing to do with each other anymore.
Ethan knew she was angry and tried to appease her.
All right, I won't call you wife. I'll call you darling, Christine darling.
Christine was too exasperated to even curse. She turned and walked away, ignoring him no matter how he called out to her. Ethan followed her, constantly pleading for forgiveness. For someone like Ethan, who had always been proud, it was rare to lower himself like this. But he was willing to do it for the one he loved. Often, loving her didn't require practice, it came naturally. It wasn't until Christine was thoroughly annoyed that Ethan finally returned to the office. Recently, the CEO had been coming to the office with a cheerful demeanor, making the employees feel he was less intimidating. Alex, the assistant, held a stack of documents that felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds, fearing that the CEO's smile would soon vanish.
Mr. Ford, these are the materials you asked me to investigate earlier. He placed the documents on the desk.
Christine's? He took the documents and began to read them page by page, carefully and seriously.
Yes. He watched Ethan's face grow darker and darker, not daring to make a sound.
Ethan's smile had long since frozen on his face. His eyes turned cold, and a chilling aura emanated from him as he tightly gripped the documents, his fingertips turning white. He felt like he was going crazy and only wanted to see Christine and hold her. He grabbed his car keys and drove to Christine's place. Driving too fast, he nearly collided with a small car but narrowly avoided it. After that, he slowed down, afraid that a traffic incident would delay his meeting with Christine. Unable to wait for the elevator, he ran to Christine's door and knocked.
Christine! Christine!
When no one answered, he continued knocking persistently. Christine, who was on the phone with Robert, the head of the financial investigation team, heard the commotion at the door and quickly hung up to open it. Before she could see Ethan clearly, she was enveloped in a tight embrace, making it hard for her to breathe.
Let go of me, I can't breathe. She said, completely trapped in his arms, unable to break free.
His hot breath brushed against her neck, and then she felt a wetness. The warmth of his tears quickly turned cold, sending a chill straight to her heart. At that moment, she forgot to struggle. The surroundings fell silent, and she felt Ethan's body trembling, but his grip on her was strong.
Christine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Ethan's eyes were bloodshot as he buried his face in her neck, not wanting her to see his disheveled state. All he could do was apologize repeatedly. He didn't know what else he could do. After reading the documents, he no longer had the confidence he once had. He wasn't sure if Christine would ever forgive him. The assistant had thoroughly investigated what had happened to Christine. An attempted assault, she had to harm herself to escape the perpetrator. At that time, she was nearly 3 months pregnant, and the child was lost because of the incident. Seeing this, he no longer cared whose child it was. He only felt heartache for the woman he loved, who had suffered so much. Yet, he had been so foolish as to want a divorce. Ethan wished he could personally deal with the perpetrator and the mastermind behind it all, Sophia. He also hated himself for not having the assistant investigate sooner. Moreover, the assistant had uncovered another truth during the investigation. The forced marriage between him and Christine was orchestrated by his parents. He also learned that Christine was gathering evidence to exonerate her father.
What's wrong?
Christine let him hold her, waiting for his emotions to settle before asking. Ethan didn't answer. He just held her tighter, his voice hoarse.
I just want to hold you.
Christine remained silent, not knowing what to say. Since she couldn't break free, she let him hold her. They stayed in that position at the door for a long time. Ethan did nothing but hold her, using his warmth to comfort her cold heart. After a long embrace, Ethan surprisingly didn't insist on staying but left instead. After Ethan left, the warmth from Christine's body faded, and her heart grew cold again. She thought their relationship would soon come to an end. Ethan's life had always been smooth sailing until he met Christine, and his life changed. So, to be with Christine again, he would make an effort. He wouldn't let the perpetrator or Sophia go unpunished.
Mr. Ford, are you sure you want to do this? After all, the White family is quite influential.
What does the White family matter?
A few days later, the sudden downfall of the White family shocked the entire city of A. No one had expected it. This news overshadowed Ethan's broken engagement, and many speculated about the reason behind the White family's downfall. Christine glanced indifferently at the newspaper, then put it down and opened another envelope. Inside were several documents and a USB drive. After reading the documents, Christine's heart raced. She trembled as she called Robert Green, the head of the investigation team, and arranged a meeting. Even after hanging up, it all felt surreal. The true dark secrets of the past were in this envelope, the very things Christine had been investigating for so long, now easily handed to her. Who had sent it? She didn't have time to think. She handed all the evidence to the police and asked her lawyer to apply for a retrial for her father's case. While busy with these matters, she didn't see Ethan. But since it involved the Ford family, Christine moved out of the house and found a hidden place to stay, making sure Ethan couldn't find her. Ethan Ford sat in his office, his gaze fixed on a photo of Christine on the desk. He reached out and lovingly caressed it. He knew Christine had moved out of their neighborhood to avoid him, fearing he would trouble her.
But how could I? I care for her deeply and would never want to hurt her.
He had dealt with the Qing family and the person who had tried to harm Christine.
Next, it's my turn.
He wouldn't let himself off for the pain he had caused Christine. The financial investigation team arriving at the Ford Group was something he had anticipated.
Mr. Ford, we suspect you of behind-the-scenes manipulation. Please come with us.
Ethan was taken away by the police. At the same time, Ethan's father, Henry Ford, was also taken away from the Ford family mansion. Half a month later, the case was retried. Edward Lane was exonerated and released, while Henry Ford was sentenced to over 20 years in prison. Ethan, having taken over the Ford family business, was implicated and sentenced to 3 years in prison. From then on, the Ford family ceased to exist in City A. It was the day Edward Lane was released from prison.
Dad!
Christine rushed to hug her father tightly the moment she saw him.
Christine, my dear Christine.
Dad, we'll be fine from now on.
Yes, we will.
Christine took her father out for a meal, bought him new clothes, and after he had rested and regained his strength, they planned to leave for Malaysia. She forced herself not to think about Ethan. Knowing they were leaving City A for good, Michael White wanted to see Christine off, but she refused, and they said their goodbyes over the phone. Sitting in the airport waiting lounge, with less than half an hour before their flight, her father went to the restroom, and she sat there, lost in thought, fiddling with her phone.
Mississippi Lane.
Startled by the voice calling her, Christine looked up to see Ethan's assistant.
Daniel Wu, what are you doing here?
I'm no longer the president's assistant. I'm heading back to my hometown. I didn't expect to run into you at the airport.
What a coincidence.
Seeing her so calm, as if she wasn't heartbroken over the president, Daniel felt a pang of injustice for Ethan.
Mississippi Lane, I need to tell you something.
What is it?
After hesitating, he finally told her everything Ethan had done for her.
The president truly loves you.
With those final words, he left with his suitcase. In the bustling airport, people were either traveling for business, vacation, or visiting family. But Christine was trying to escape.
Yet, didn't she have no reason to run anymore?
She wiped away her tears, took out her phone, and called her father, her voice unusually calm.
Dad, I'm not going to Malaysia. I'm staying.
I'll always support you.
It was Ethan Ford's 30th day in prison, and he had already adapted to this life. He didn't resent or regret his actions. He wanted to atone and hoped to stand before Christine as a changed man.
0627, you have a letter.
Ethan took the envelope, not knowing who would write to him. He opened it and quickly became emotional, his eyes reddening, his nose tingling, but his heart was filled with sweetness.
Dear husband, I'm waiting for you. I want to teach you all my cooking skills so you can cook for me every day. Christine.